The United States is the only country that uses insurance codes for actually billing and being able to drive care.
When you label somebody with something, they get attached
There you go.
to that label. And then they use that as a crutch.
And your body knows.
And
Like it knows that you are not a safe vessel to carry a baby.
Right.
So it's like a protective mechanism. It's like, why would we put your body through this if it can't handle it?
I believe the body has no agenda. Like the body can't lie. It doesn't have a reason to. If you can sleep and feel rested in the morning, eat without it bothering your digestion, getting bloated or feeling gassy, and if you can poop every day, you're doing better than most.
Welcome to our Integrated Mind podcast, where we help you connect your mind, your body, and your soul. I'm Belle Valladares Gottlieb, your integrative psychotherapist, and my co-host.
I'm Nicole Pavich, your integrative nurse practitioner.
Today we have an amazing guest, Dr. Christina Casado. She is a physician of acupuncture medicine, which is also trained in traditional Chinese medical herbalism. Welcome today, Dr. Christina.
Thank you so much.
I
really
call you
excited.
Dr. Christina, but
It's totally fine. I love that and I appreciate that. And you can just call me Christina.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you again for coming today. I just want to give a little brief background. I've gone to you. I went to you several years ago, and I went, I believe it was like 8 sessions with you. And for me, it was so amazing. And I never forgot you.
Thank you.
Yes, to the point that we have a mutual friend that him and I were speaking, and he mentioned that he was one of your best friends. And I couldn't believe it. And this was probably a month ago. And I got so excited to finally reconnect with you. And now you're here in this podcast with me. So I'm so honored and so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much. And I'm also really excited because of your center and working with Nicole and everything that you're doing together. We really need this in Miami. In particular, this city is a little slower to adopt some of the alternative or complementary medicine that other cities have in such high concentration. So perfect timing.
Yes.
Like this is a wonderful collaboration. I'm really excited.
Thank you. So let's just pretty much start with the basics, right? What is acupuncture? What is Chinese medical herbalism? How did you get into it? And I'm going to give you the floor for this.
Thank you. It's really interesting because and this is something I talk to, especially young people who are trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. You can plan all you want. You end up on a path and you kind of sometimes just, are called to something. I started out loving the sciences and loving plants. And it's really funny because I thought I was going to be a medical doctor and I wanted to be a surgeon. In fact, my father has congestive heart failure. And so one of the things that I was always studying is, the heart and cardiovascular disease and like trying to understand what he had. And then end up at Tufts University, which is one of the top medical schools in the country, in pre-med. And by the 3rd year, I was like, I don't want to do this. It's not what I want to do. It was a very different approach to what I thought medicine was going to be like. So I went in a different direction. And I went, because I had so much science, I was able to transfer into a biology program and an environmental sciences program with a concentration in plant physiology. It led me to a master's in botany. It led me to work in the Amazon.
Oh my
gosh. Discovery Channel job, like a completely 15 years of work in the environment and botany. Mm-hmm. And then after 15 years, realizing I really miss medicine. I want to go back to medicine. And so I was looking for how do I take what I've learned and go back to medicine. And what really got me in the process of being in academia and then being in the corporate world and working in government and all of these different parts of my life was the impact. In academia, the impact was too slow. Like we can study something, like I would study something and then it was gone. Like I would do a plant list of an area and then it was gone because it was developed. So I'm like, I want to be able to make a difference. And working with a person or working with a group. And what better way to do that but through medicine and healthcare, which is what my original plan was. So I went around looking for different opportunities. And I had a wonderful chiropractor who said, you'd be a great chiropractor. And I went to chiropractic school for 1 month. And forgive me for all the chiropractors out there, but I don't have enough polos in my wardrobe to be a chiropractor. Everybody had a polo. I was really into sports medicine. I was like kind of a hippie girl. And so I was like, okay, this is cool, but I don't think it's the right exact fit. And because I've worked with plants my whole life, I decided to look for an herbalist program. And I ended up finding a program in Chinese medical herbalism. Actually, it was a acupuncture physician program or doctor of Oriental medicine in Miami, and went to school. And I went in there with the concept of I'm going to become an herbalist. And then one day I went to a workshop with this wonderful, amazing jewel of Japan, they call her, Kiiko Matsumoto, one of the most well-known Japanese acupuncturists in the world. And I knew in that moment I'd found my teacher. And I started following her and her work. And so now here I am, a doctor of Oriental medicine. In the state of Florida, we call it acupuncture physician. Primarily in the Japanese style, which is very gentle, as you remember from your sessions. It's palpatory, which means that we will press on your body in order to identify where the blockages are. And then through different protocols, be able to clear those blockages. And you feel the difference on the table, like while you're on the table. So it's a really nice style of acupuncture, if I do say so myself. Of course, I'm biased. And then because I have that history of herbal medicine, I will customize formulas or provide patent formulas, which are kind of like formulas that are already developed that are kind of over the counter from the perspective of an herbal formula.
That you can vouch for, yeah.
Right, yeah, like patent formulas are over the counter, customized formulas are blended specifically for you. And, either one could be appropriate. But use of that with acupuncture really accelerates healing. And so that's what we do at Treehouse. It's, I started the clinic in 2012 in Coconut Grove, and we're still around. So I think we're meeting some kind of need, which I'm excited about. Absolutely. Continuing. And I've been really learning a lot about how the work that we do is so necessary, especially since COVID in particular. We've seen an increase in neurological conditions in younger people. We've seen an increase in cardiovascular conditions, not because of COVID necessarily, but in the last 15 years. Even strokes have increased by 15% in people under the age of 50 since the early 2000s. And I think it's the stress.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think it's attributed to? I mean, obviously we don't know exactly, but from what you are experiencing or seeing from your patients, what do you?
And I think it's a lot of what you do, Belle. It's like you're able to help people connect their mind and their body and be able to somehow understand that emotions really can be the root of a lot of physical conditions. And that's what I think is happening. Yes, there are physical things happening. It's not to say that it's in your head or anything like that.
Correct.
That's not fair to say. However, if your body, and this is something that I see all the time through the lens of Chinese medicine, if your body is giving you all these signals and your mind is so disconnected, or you're so focused on whatever it is you need to do, a deadline, your work, your kids, life, then you're ignoring what your body is really screaming at you, trying to tell you, and it will manifest as disease. But there's a lot of flags, right? There's a lot of things that we can pick up.
Yeah. Belle and I talk about that, like the little whispers that your body tells you, whether it's like just not inability to sleep properly, random headaches that are coming up, increased PMS symptoms, just little things that you're just not contributing to the day-to-day stress and just blaming it on something else.
And the thing is that we don't listen, though. Us as a society, we're so focused on what do we have to do today? What are all our responsibilities? Let's push through, right? Yeah. That we only go and seek a physician of any type of physician when it's already to the point
crisis mode.
Right. and I think it's really interesting because I started out wanting to be a surgeon, like in Western medicine. It's not the doctor's fault.
No.
There is a system out there which creates a construct where a doctor doesn't even have the ability to spend the time that is needed with an individual to truly connect and see what's going on with them. It's insurance code driven. The United States is the only country that uses insurance codes for actually billing and being able to drive care. In the rest of the world, it's actually just used to collect data.
Christina,
It's
you're
incredible.
going to get me on a tangent here. And I'm just going to make one statement. That is obviously the same situation here. We have to go by a diagnostic manual and label somebody for what symptoms they have in order to bill insurance. Right. And I don't like this because when you label somebody with something, they get attached to that label. And then they use that as a crutch.
Yeah.
When essentially what's going on is your body's responding to something.
Yeah.
And it's manifesting in different ways. So instead of focusing so much on the diagnoses and what codes we have to use to bill the insurance, let's focus on the person.
What's beautiful about, I see the world through the lens of Chinese medicine. So forgive me for always filtering it through that.
It's okay.
Well, what you said from the perspective of labeling or categorizing, I get it. And I even understand why the codes exist, because you do need to collect that data so that you understand what's happening in society as healthcare practitioners, right? Like, we need to understand where to put the research or where to put the resources. But for the person, that's a very different utility, right? Like, that's not going to apply. So can we evolve that into something that actually does connect with the patient? So in Chinese medicine, we have this system called the 5 elements. And it's part of the diagnosis process in a type of acupuncture, style of acupuncture called 5 element, but it's also like what I call the original psychology. I mean, Chinese medicine is really old. We're talking over 2,000 years, right? And if you look at Ayurveda, arguably even older, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I love Ayurveda.
It's beautiful. Like, very similar roots.
It's all elements, yeah.
Right, very similar roots. So the concept of 5 elements is that there are 5 elements in nature. There's the water, the wood, the metal, the fire, and the earth. There's a controlling cycle where one element controls the other, and there's a generating cycle where one element generates another. So for example, water generates wood. Why? You need water for the seed to grow. Wood generates fire. Why? You burn the wood in order to get the flame, and so on. We all have one of these elements dominant in our personality. So I like to take the patient through this process, because instead of an insurance code or a diagnosis, you can start looking and see where your tendencies are in your personality and how that links back to your physical health, the organs involved, the channels that are blocked, and even your emotions. So it's really cool because it brings together the concept that we are reflections of nature, and that you and your constitution, what you inherited from your parents or from your epigenetics or your culture or your environment, is going to impact that. And through your life, different elements will become more obvious. So for example, during a part of your life, you might have a lot of wood energy, which is driver personality, go-getting, moving really quickly. I would argue that too. And also there's a degree of the highest virtue of the wood element is benevolence. And I would agree with that for you too, to support people who don't have support, to the voice to the voiceless. There's the activist. And it's a beautiful, beautiful element. And of all the elements, it's the only one that's alive. In fact, the wood element lets you know you're alive, and the power and leadership of the wood element. You think of the energy required for that seed to push through dark soil, and the faith required to know that the sun is somewhere and to keep going and not give up until it bursts through the ground in springtime. That's the essence of wood. To be able to have someone connect with that part of themselves changes the diagnosis to be like, oh, sometimes when I get impatient or stressed, it's really that energy that I have. I need to redirect that. I need to create more flexibility instead of being rigid, because that also is wood, right? And then that ties back to your liver, to your gallbladder. Let's see what's going on there. And then the session can continue instead of pigeonholing someone into, I'm impatient, I'm stressed out, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I hate everybody. So,
Like what's happening?
It's like, I'm only wood energy.
But that energy, it's just energy, right? So you just, and you move it. And you've channeled it elsewhere. And now that person understands that with that same energy that created that experience, you can also create that experience. And that's what being human is, right?
I love that. See, this is why, again, I never forgot you. I think it was, so my son is going to be 5. It was before I was pregnant. So I hadn't seen you. And then I forgot where you were. I just knew you were in the Grove. And then it was COVID and all of these things happened. But I always had you in the back of my mind. And I'm just so happy to connect with you again. And you hearing you speak like this is why you were so impactful for me when I went to you. Oh, I love it.
Thank you.
But going back to what you were saying about the energy and shifting, what pops up into my head is women who are struggling to get pregnant, or even PMS symptoms.
Yeah.
So can you give me an example of how that would benefit women, how acupuncture and herbal medicine works?
Sure. So the thing about acupuncture is, and herbal medicine, or just, I would say Chinese medicine in general, or Oriental medicine, if you are more, that's what we're calling it now.
Can you give us like the breakdown of each?
100%. Yes.
She's going to go into the weeds.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to answer your question about PMS, fertility, and what we call women's medicine, but men are also involved here because it takes, two,
that's a good
right?
point. Yes.
I mean, we have to look at this as a collective project, sometimes if there's challenges. Acupuncture and herbal medicine are part of a greater system of Chinese medicine or East Asian medicine that includes acupuncture, herbal medicine, a type of a scraping therapy called gua sha, cupping, right? There's physical manipulation, there's qigong, there's breathing, right? There's so many practices because it's so complete. The idea is, if you're having an obstacle to fertility, there's an obstacle somewhere, either in the physical body, there's an excess condition, so too much of something in your body. Maybe it's inflammation. Maybe it's some other kind of a fluid retention. There's a deficiency. You don't have the energy. Maybe the uterine wall isn't thick enough. The lining isn't thick enough. So there could be a blood deficiency, right? So there's lots of different aspects that we would look and see where the challenges are, and then be able to treat the patient using all of these modalities. It could even be something on a very deep level as fear, right? Because why is it that you want to have a child? Maybe there is this desire to have a child. However, there's a whole bunch of fear around, what world am I bringing this child into? Am I going to be able to provide for this child? What is the environment? What is the, all the dangers, or even what's going to happen to my body? I'm afraid. I've had patients afraid of going through labor, right? Then ideas that something's going to happen to them. And, so there could be fear. So we have to look at this as a whole person. And so that's, the beginning.
You just hit something really powerful there. You talked about all the physical stuff, but then you said the fear, which is the psychological, emotional aspect. And I even think about the pressure that society puts on women, right? You have to be married at this age. You have to have children at this age, right? You have to do this, you have to do that. And the woman, even the man, right? They, even though internally there's probably I don't know, but they feel like the push that they have to. Right? So they're doing it, right? They're checking the box. They're doing what society says that they should be doing. It's kind of part of your culture. But then they know that really internally there's
resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that to answer, and I know Nicole has this question because I know we were talking about it earlier too, is how does the acupuncture actually interrupt that?
Yes, I'm very interested to find out.
So acupuncture, which is primarily my modality, you are putting a foreign object inside a body, right? Your body is going to know that that needle's there. Even though that needle's so tiny and thin and it doesn't even hurt, your brain is going to pick up there's something there. So the attention is going to be on that point. Acupuncture works through something called micro damage. There's a tiny little needle going through and it's going to break a couple of cells and maybe some tissue. Nothing huge. It's probably the same thing that broke when I just moved my arm like this, right? Because tiny little cells move and there's fibers that break. But what happens? There's a slight inflammatory response. Now the brain is going to send blood, fluids, vitamins, fibroblasts, all sorts of stuff to that point that was where the needle was inserted. That already changes the physiology immediately. Very, very simply and without any pain. Now, the points that we're using have different functions. How they figured that out, I don't know. That is a mystery, a 2,000-year-old mystery, and thank goodness that they did. But the different points do matter. It's not that you would put a point here versus here, and it's the same thing. To the brain, it's the same idea, but to the physiology, it's different. So there are certain points that help clear inflammation. There are certain points that increase blood circulation. There are certain points that will actually go through the reproductive organs. Why? Because the body is a nervous system, right? If you think about it, you're a battery. You're a battery with nerves, blood, fluids, and it's run by potassium, sodium, calcium, and magnesium as your electrolytes. And all those signals are moving through the body. Now, if there's imbalances in any of those minerals, if there's blockages or reduction of fluid or the fluid accessing the toe versus the knee, the acupuncture will interrupt that. Why? Because the nerve signal will change the what the body's doing normally. So for example, there's another way to look at this with blood pressure. Blood pressure can be really, really emotional, right?
Yes.
Like, have you ever heard of white coat syndrome?
Yeah.
Have you ever had white coat syndrome, right? So it's so volatile as a measure. So yes, you can take your blood pressure in different times of the day and get an estimate. But if in a moment you have a reaction, neurotransmitters in the brain will cause a difference in your nervous system, in your autonomic nervous system, right? The fight, flight, and you'll increase the blood pressure so that the muscles get more oxygen because you're thinking you're going to need it. Well, people who are constantly in a state of sympathetic dominance or constantly are fight or flight are not going to have as many resources for things like reproduction, digestion, even like getting blood to your toes. So you have really cold hands and feet. You know, either the blood's going to go to the muscles or to the visceral organs to protect you. This can have a huge impact on your fertility.
I didn't even think about the fertility aspect.
Yeah.
I always think about it on the emotional sense, right? And the energetically,
Right.
like having energy, but I didn't even think about it in the fertility aspect.
Because you're using the resources for other things.
And your body knows.
And
like
your-
it knows
yeah.
that you are not a safe vessel to carry a
Right.
baby.
Right.
So it's like a protective mechanism. It's
Right.
like, why would we put your body through this if it can't handle it? Because you're in that sympathetic dominant state for so long.
And you're not extracting nutrients from your food 100%. Your digestion could be a little thrown off. And so that also reduces like the ability of your body to have what it needs to make a good lining, what it needs to make like nice, solid, genetically high quality eggs, right? So with acupuncture and especially herbal medicine, when it comes to fertility, we really focus on that. We focus on uterine lining, blood circulation, the quality of blood, being able to have nutritional therapy that is simple, not like a diet, but saying you're going to have more of these foods and less of these foods. And that depends on you, because maybe you have a lot of excess fluid. So we don't want to generate more fluids. We want the moisture in your body to like leach out or like to be eliminated. So these foods help with that. Or maybe you're really dry. You actually need to generate fluids. It depends. One of my go-tos is, I don't know if you've ever seen Chinese red dates.
I have
This is
not.
like the most miracle food. I think we're starting right here. We need to mark this date and time because when this takes off, we talk. There are these red dates that look like a date, right? But it's not an actual date. It comes from a shrub, not a palm. And you see them in the streets in Chinatown. You may have seen them with a walnut stuffed inside. And they're really big sometimes.
I have.
They're called jujubes.
Now, okay.
They're amazing. It calms your spirit.
I didn't know.
It helps hormone balance. It it tonifies the blood, and they're delicious. Like you can chop them up and put them in a smoothie. You can eat them. I eat like 2 a day because, at my age, like I'm going through hormonal changes. It helps me balance. They're also really yummy and they're nutritious. 2 a day. You can get them organic from California. Like, these are simple things. So those are the kinds of recommendations that I end up making. And then also just the concept of the herbal medicine. The same with nutrition, the herbs can do different things. So the cool thing about herbal medicine and in the Chinese approach, it's different than just like one herb. Yeah. Sometimes people will be like, oh, I take ashwagandha for my stress.
I take it.
Right. And it's a beautiful adaptogen. It's from Ayurvedic tradition. Mm-hmm. In Chinese herbalism, we have the power of the formula. So you could have some herbs that are toxic in nature, and their toxicity is completely neutralized by another 3 herbs. And there are some formulas that have up to 20 herbs, and it's all about the dosage and the ratios, which is why it's hard to learn. It's like to become an herbalist in the Chinese medical herbalism is like a 5-year program. Wow. It takes a long time because it's a pharmacy. But the power of that formula is really amazing. If anyone's ever had the opportunity to go to some of these Chinese pharmacies in either New York, Chinatown, or San Francisco, where like you go in and there's a guy and like all those drawers behind him and he hands you a bag of sticks and twigs, whatever you have is gone, right? Like it's like people's like, I don't know, this guy handed me a bag. And I was like, I had 3 days of this disgusting thing and I'm fine. Like it's really powerful. No side effects. Yeah, it's good. But it does take like getting over some cultural boundaries, right? Like drinking disgusting mud kind of that tastes terrible. It's not really made for the Western palate, but for the most part, if you're committed to getting into or getting past something that's very chronic, like, it can support. So yeah, it's like I was saying, like the overarching power of Chinese medicine is we have all these multiple modalities. Acupuncture gets you very far because it's an immediate physiological flip of your nervous system, like on the table. You go parasympathetic, you drop in, all of a sudden you get really sleepy. I call it adult nap time. And then all of a sudden you wake up, you're like, where am I? Awesome. So it's like it's great. And because you need that, there's so few opportunities for that. And that alone already reallocates resources in your body because you're not in fight or flight anymore. And then add the herbal medicine or the cupping or the gua sha and all the other modalities. It just helps the body be more balanced and increase the access of blood and oxygen to all the tissues, which if you've got blood and oxygen to all the tissues, you can heal from just about anything, Yeah.
I feel like I want to go back to school. We talked a little bit about the women, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the men and how the reproduction and infertility also ties to the men. How does that work?
For male infertility or just as male challenge infertility, it's usually 3 things, 2 in particular. One of them is blood flow. It's like reduced circulation. Obviously, you need, good blood circulation to make sperm, that area of the reproductive organs require a lot of blood to function. So increasing circulation, which is why drugs like Viagra actually work because it increases your blood pressure. Like it's a blood pressure regulator, a vasodilator, which automatically increases blood pressure. So we do have herbal medicine, and also the acupuncture just does that as a natural result of the treatment itself. Number 1. Number 2, the dietary therapy for men, sometimes they struggle with it, and I mean, it's Miami. I have a lot of patients who use a lot of cannabis. And I think that as wonderful as a medicine that is for certain things, it really reduces fertility. It slows motility, sperm motility.
Yes.
And that's something that's important, like cleaning up the diet, improving, trace minerals and other kinds of vitamins that you need in order to make high quality sperm, and improving blood flow. And then the third thing is hormonal balance, right? So there are certain herbs that actually increase testosterone. Some of them are not as, I don't use them as much because I find them a little unethical, like the deer antlers and some of the animal products. I try to avoid those. They're very popular in China and other parts of Asia. They have different culture around that. But there's plant-based tonic, what we call yang tonics. Like the whole concept of yin and yang, right?
Yes, I'm very familiar
So,
with
right. Yeah. So it's like, and you know what's cool about, just as an aside, yin and yang, a lot of people think that that's a static image because like you'll see it as like an image or a tattoo, right?
It's
Like
motion.
it's kinetic. Yeah. It's always in motion, right? So the yin and the yang is always moving. And so, you know, things that stop go stagnant. So that whole idea is yang goes into yin, yin goes into yang. And the yang tonics allow the increase in the motion in the body because yang is kinetic, right? Yang is what moves. Yin is what is still, like the fluids, the blood, dense organs like the liver are yin. Yang organs are like the stomach, which is a pocket, right? That's moving. The movement of muscles, the movement of your body, the flow of qi and blood, those are all yang. So if that is reduced because of some kind of lifestyle or age or other kind of health issue, you want to be able to increase that or eliminate that block. And you can use the herbal yang tonics.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now I'm shifting. I'm going to shift a little bit more to the mental health. We talked about the nervous system, but I really want to emphasize how herbalism, Chinese herbalism, and acupuncture really help the integration of the mind and the body. Is there any examples that you might have through your patients that you've had in the past or experiences yourself or, you know, as a practitioner?
Yeah, it's so important, like going back to the whole concept of how, we were talking earlier about, I believe the body has no agenda. Like the body can't lie. It doesn't have a reason to. Right? It's telling you things. You were saying like there's whispers. Sometimes the whispers get to be very loud and we ignore them. The mind, on the other hand, I find it suspect. It can create a lot of stories.
Yes.
They may or may not be true. They may have been true at one point and aren't true today, right? So how does that, affect our health? Well, being able to integrate that, the physicality of acupuncture, like the physical process of putting needles in a body, and now the mind is aware, and now there's sensations in the body. We call it body-centric therapies. So instead of using your mind the way you would in talk therapy, for example, which could trigger the ego, right? It could trigger the story, which might be useful at the moment, right?
Yeah, we try to figure out what your story is because your story is what's creating your world.
Exactly. And that creates the awareness. It stays here though. So how do you bring it into the body, right? To make those connections, the 5-element work is very important because, you have this idea of like, okay, I'm going to, like your wood energy will marry maybe your earth, right? So I have this digestive disorder. Maybe it's GERD. And the patient comes in and say, oh, I'm always bloated. And then you realize that they're worried about so many things. So they have a story. I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried. Well, the imbalance of earth is worry and overthink.
Oh, then I think I'm both.
So, well, we have all of them, right?
That's true.
we will go through all the elements and you'll be like, I have that too. I have that. And it's true. We are. So if that's prominent right now and you're overthinking and worrying, yes, that's going to hit your digestive system. So let's make that connection. That story hits the system.
Affecting the stomach acid, either too much acid, too little acid.
Exactly.
And that's how it's manifesting.
So it's making that connection, and you still do that in the mind. And then when you start working the person's channel or something, you start working the stomach channel and you start noticing there's blocks. How would you notice that? You put the needle in and then you suddenly feel like kind of cramping or like a rush of electricity through that channel. The nerve was the signal was blocked, and we unblock it and you start to feel a wave go through your body. So it actually changes the way, acupuncture can be very physical. Some people feel nothing.
I felt with you. You did something to me. I mean, it was years ago. Yeah. Something in my stomach, and I felt my stomach like going like,
They responded. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. There are times where I'm working like the liver channel down on the feet, and then all of a sudden you'll start noticing the stomach just got
I don't know how to explain it.
activated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like a sensation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sensation. But you're 100% true, because if I see it in the therapy aspect, we get a trigger, right? It's an emotional. And then instead of doing non-judgment and just accepting that it's an emotion, we create a story behind it. And that story makes the emotion last longer than it should. Because we start categorizing it, we start, saying this is unpleasant. And then the story behind that is, whatever it is that you're creating. And then you're creating this feedback loop of I'm feeling
that story.
this. Yes. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling this. That means that this, whatever I'm thinking, whatever story I'm creating is connected to that.
Yeah.
And it's just basically sometimes it's just an emotion that you get and you should just let it go, aside from even creating a story behind it.
Yeah. And that's the culmination of helping that person make that connection, right? And there's different ways to make that connection. It just depends on your patient and where they're at. And we have to meet people where they are.
That's very, very true, because even though my whole purpose is integration,
Right.
some people are not ready for that. They need to first do a lot of talk to process all of that rumination that they have in their mind, because as you speak, the brain is processing. That's why I like a lot of journaling, and I don't like it on the internet, right? I like pen, paper. It's very grounding. It's earth. So when you're up here and you're speaking or you're thinking and you're writing, you're grounding all of your thoughts. So, I don't know how that would go with the 5 elements, but
I think that you said it best. It is very earth, like from the perspective of centering, right? So like the earth is the center. That's why it's like the spleen in the stomach, which is in the center of our body. So, it brings it back to like the center of everything. I'm like not anti-technology, but almost like there are days I want to just throw my cell phone into Biscayne Bay and be done with it.
I understand.
I have a paper planner. I write all my ideas and my lists and everything with hand and, pencil and paper, because it is the only way that I feel like it becomes a reality, right? So it's like it becomes concrete, idea to actual physical concrete thing, which is the computer doesn't feel real. It's like a box with
in
stuff.
Ayurveda, and I'm not an Ayurveda specialist, but Vata is very ungrounded. And that's what your thoughts are, right? Is all Vata. When you're on, and what do you need when you're Vata? You need to ground, right? But when you're on the internet and when you're doing all these electronics, it's all ether, which then promotes the Vata. So you're still going to be up here. So that's why, again, I know it's not traditional Chinese, but it's Ayurvedic, which is the Indian version of it, right? You need to ground. You need paper. You need a book, not an ebook that you keep swiping from side to side. There are elemental purposes for still having things that you can actually touch and feel. Right. I think energetically, it's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that help when you have an earth imbalance, for example, or you can't get centered, or you're getting lost in, it's interesting, like the concept of ether would probably be somewhere between metal and fire. Probably. Because fire can get like consumed and almost manic, right? Because you're like you don't know where to focus attention. And then metal can become almost like so ethereal that it's like air. Right. So it's like so ethereal. And it controls the lungs. Right. So there's, concept. And then there's other emotions and things there. However, to bring something back to reality or to concrete, the earth is very important. And there's a concept in the 5 element. There's different concepts because it's 2,000 years. They change their mind all the time. Right. There's an idea that through every season we go back through earth. So from spring to summer, we go through earth. So we go from wood through earth to fire, fire through earth to earth, earth through earth to metal. We're in metal now, which is the autumn.
Well, that's very similar to Ayurveda.
Right.
Because right now we're in Vata season.
Right.
Well, we're going into Vata season.
Right,
with,
which is the metal.
Winter,
right there.
the wintry style. Summer is very Pitta, it's very fire.
Fire.
Hot, That's as far as I go. Again, I'm not an Ayurvedic specialist, but I have the concepts. And I always think about that. And I always think about that with our emotions, right? Because our emotions we are part of the earth. So we are going to also tie into the seasons of the earth.
Right.
That's why, we've talked a lot about how our minds and our emotions, and we're planning on in our social media, kind of tailoring it to the season.
Right.
Foods that we should be eating that are essential for the change of the seasons, and
like lifestyle techniques, grounding, or being more outdoors, spring cleaning, spring cleanses. Like there's reasons, like mindful purposes for eating and living your lifestyle different ways through the seasons.
So we're going into Halloween, right? And we're going into we're in the autumn, and there's this concept in Chinese medicine, and the concept of the 5 elements, where the metal element going into the autumn is a time of editing. And if you think about the life cycle of a tree, right? What does the tree do in autumn? It starts to allocate resources to what is coming in the winter when there aren't any resources. Like it's darker, it's cold, right? So one leaf, they pull the resources from one leaf, it turns colors and drops one by one, and you just lose your leaves, and then all those resources in the trees get sent down into the roots, and they go underground to be conserved for when the spring comes, and then that energy of the seed coming up again, right? So it's the same idea. It's like when you're editing, you don't want to be, using a lot of energy in places that aren't going to serve you, right? It's like you want to be able to consolidate that. And then going into Halloween, the concept of the jack-o'-lantern. This is a little project I give some of my patients. It's like, look for where you put the light. So you create your jack-o'-lantern, which is like your container, and then you light yourself inside. So it's like, where do you hold your own flame?
I love
and that being a
So
representation of your energy, right? Instead of like in the summer where it's like the flames everywhere. So it's like, no, you're going to light it inside, and it's that introspection of, you're lighting the flame inside, and it's your resources, your fire, your heat, that which nourishes you. Because when we contract in this time of year, we want to be able to protect our resources. And you'll notice it a lot, like in the foods, like what you were saying. The foods become a lot more nourishing, hearty, warming to the soul, like stick to your bones. It's in here, not so like
salady.
Raw.
Yes.
Exactly.
Not so much like detoxifying, more like warmth,
warming,
comforting, nutrition, nourishing.
Right. Bringing it into you.
Which falls into, if you think about even the moon also, the moon, well, let me rephrase that. The autumn, the days get shorter and the nights get longer. In the winter, that we start going from autumn to winter, the days become shorter and the nights become longer. Again, what is the purpose of the moon? Slow down, go inside. Right? In the summer, in the spring, the days are a lot longer. So it's a lot about exertion, more about yang energy, right? More about going and just accomplishing and doing. But we all have to, and emotionally, we do the same thing. We all go through different cycles. It's just kind of like the macro types of cycles, like, the weather and the elements. But also emotionally, we go that into a micro level. It's kind of like a smaller phase of the earth within us. We go through that through our life stages. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I always do the analogy, not the analogy, but I always think of, those little Swiss dolls that they're big, and then you have another one that's small, and then another one that's small. Yes.
Russian dolls.
Yes, those. That's how I think about us. Like the universe is the big one. Then you have the earth. Then you have, different areas of the world. So like that until you get to the smallest one, which is you and your earth within you, or the universe within you, which is the same cycles, just shorter and more personal.
So beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I always think about that. I don't know why, but it stuck to me.
It's a perfect analogy to that.
But yeah.
Because it's all interdependent, but it's also they're separate, right?
Yes.
That's really cool. And then,
So Christina, I wanted to ask you, a question. You know, we are all providers to hold space for health and healing for our clients and our patients. And not everybody has access or financial access to see us every day. You know, I know we have some patients that, you know, they're going through difficult times, whether it's personal life transitions or health crises, and they need to see us more frequently or for a snippet of time. And not always do, like I said, not always are they going to have access to us on the spot. But what we try to do, Belle and I, with the mind-body connection and the time that we spend with our patients, is to enforce the importance of the work outside of also working with us. So they get the work done while they're with us, but we really try to enforce what they do when they're on their own, because that will really propel a healthier lifestyle. And I know for you, sometimes like they can't give acupuncture to themselves like at home. They need to physically come and see you. But what is it that you educate your clients on outside of working with you? Because Belle really tries to enforce awareness, emotional regulation, stress management. I try to not only do stress management, but, you know, sleep optimization, nutrition, movement. I try to touch on all of those things so people can create a healthier lifestyle on the day-to-day. What do you instruct your patients to do?
So the concept of Treehouse when I opened Treehouse was to empower our patients to know that they are the ones that have the control of their health. Because a lot of what medicine has been thus far is you don't know what's wrong with you. You go to someone and they tell you. So first of all, it's that concept of empowering the patient to understand, to know what to look for. So that's the first step, is awareness of like to know what to look for. I have a little like mantra that says, if you can sleep and feel rested in the morning, if you can eat without it bothering your digestion, getting bloated or feeling gassy, and if you can poop every day, you're doing better than most.
Right. And those are
Basic.
questions that I ask my patients before they even come and see me.
Basic,
so
right?
I'm glad we're,
Exactly.
I'm finding that we're all on the same page here, alternative providers together as a collective community.
It's the basic functions of what makes you healthy, right? It's like I can rest,
Detoxify.
I can eliminate what I don't need, and I also can process what I am consuming, right? If there's an imbalance in one of those and you're noticing it, that's when there's a flag. So then what are the tools that you can have? Well, obviously I am also an herbalist, so I do provide my patients with certain formulas that then they can take on their own. And if they can't come in to see me, they can get refills, right? So like you can just take your supplementation. There's certain herbs that help, for example, with menstrual problems you're going to have those every month. So it takes some time to fix that. And if you can't come see me, you can take these formulas. And you also know that there's certain practices that you need, you can have. There's also the concept of the nutritional therapy, right? It's like there's this adage in Chinese medicine that, we don't do dairy, that dairy is some kind of a disaster. For most people it is, especially in Miami, because it's such a hot and humid climate. But you have to also understand the environment that you're in. So if you're finding yourself in a very dry climate, or you're working out a lot and you're consuming a lot of fluids, then it's okay to take something like dairy because that generates fluids.
I love that you say that because everybody's different. And people like to kind of say, okay, just don't eat dairy, or don't do this, don't do that.
Right.
And it's very important to figure out where you are, what your other lifestyle choices are. There's a lot more factors that go into what's good for you than just generalize and slap a statement there.
And if you know that about yourself because you've worked with one of us and you understand that you've been given a little bit of a toolbox to know, it's like, oh, I know that when I feel this way, I can have my Chinese dates and it helps calm me down. Or those Passiflora drops, are an anti-nervine, those little drops help me like get through the day, or I'm going to have some tea. And these are the practices that I can do for myself to empower that patient to be able to take care of themselves. And then if something gets to the point that, I've been dealing with this for a couple of weeks, then you come see us. or I'll refer them to another practitioner saying, you're doing a really great job with these kinds of things, but I think you need to go a little bit deeper and unpack that, so go see Belle. Or it's like, you really need to do a session, with Nicole, because you've got this concept that, I'm not being able to like calm my nervous system. And so I need a tool, or something like that. Or maybe I need some blood work to understand, where I'm at after 6 months of this particular lifestyle change. So it's being able to empower our patients to be able to know when to come in and to know when their bodies are telling them something, I think is, then we'll know we did a good job because they know what to do for themselves. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I love that. I find that decreasing inflammation and managing stress are two major factors in promoting healing. Yeah. And if patients, or people that aren't our patients can focus on doing those things, there's a lot of transformational change that can happen. And also the speed in which things happen, because our environment is toxic, our water is toxic, our food is toxic, and bringing awareness to making better choices and managing stress appropriately really helps to significantly relieve the body of so much inflammation. Yeah. And people don't know it until they start like making those changes and to see what it really feels like to feel good.
Well, that's the thing. I think for all three of us, the magic is awareness. Mm-hmm. Awareness of what your body's telling you, awareness of why you're being emotionally triggered, mm-hmm. or why you're going, and awareness of, I'm not sleeping all mm-hmm. that great. People don't, we see this and we know this, and for us it's like, yeah, it's just awareness. But the average person is so in the rat race, and so let's go, Monday I have this, Tuesday I have to pick up the kids, I have to do this, or my husband's bitching, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We all have lives and we all have a lot of stressors. We do not live in a very low stress society. Yeah. So that's why I always say awareness is the key to transformational change. If you're not aware of what's, they're never going to go to you, right? If they're going to be like, no, this is normal.
This is normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing. Mm-hmm. This is normal.
Oh, I haven't been sleeping well for decades.
Oh, but that's okay. That's my life, right?
And there's a difference between normal and healthy. Mm-hmm. And because I have had patients come in that say, well, my doctor said that this is normal. I said, it might be common, but it's actually not healthy. Like a lot of people might be experiencing this, and that practitioner sees this all the time. And it's kind of like, yeah, statistically, you're in the majority. But statistically, the majority is not healthy in that particular aspect. And we need to shift that. At least if you want to have longevity, a high quality of life, be able to achieve those things.
And going back to what you said before, everyone is different. You can't, and my husband's a physician, so I have the utmost respect for the medical profession. I think it's necessary in our society. Yeah. However, there's one thing that not everybody's going to fall into the same parameters. We're not. We're different, right? We're going to have situations in our life, our genetics. There's so many other things that we don't want it to be normal. We want it to be healthy and optimized. Right. Right? Not just like, okay, this is under the general guidelines.
And tolerant for that person. You know what I mean? It's amazing. Like, how many times have you had a patient come through saying, well, my grandfather ate what he wanted, smoked every day, did whatever, lived to 97. He was fine. You go, well, he probably had great social connections.
Yeah.
Wasn't too stressed out. Maybe never worked in the United States of America.
Didn't
have that. And probably never was exposed to plastic as a child.
Uh-huh.
Boom.
There's so many things.
And processed food.
And processed food. My Spanish cousins are healthier than us, even though they eat pork every day or whatever, right? It's so much your environment. So you have to see what you want to tolerate. And hey, it's your life. Exactly. You get to live it how you want. These are the tools. If you're unhappy and feeling uncomfortable, but you don't have to have this pinnacle of I've got to reach here in order to have a good long life.
It's more about quality, because you can live to 100 and be in a a wheelchair and be on 20 medications
Right.
and all these things and not being there in family gatherings and really
Right.
engaging,
Yeah.
or go up to 90 and really
And be
engage.
active 90-year-old, you know?
Yeah, health span versus lifespan
Yeah.
is the concept, right? And like being able to be healthy, like live better longer, you know, is the it's actually that's the tagline on my Substack.
Yeah.
Live better longer.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, yeah, because I think that's a really viable goal.
Yeah, because
You know?
people say, I'm going to die one day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Don't you want to enjoy this whole time that you're here and not end up in different doctor's offices? You know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's your choice too. And that's the other thing, like to go back to the empowerment, it's your choice. You know, here are the tools. Like, what is it that you want to take advantage of, and how much do you want to invest in yourself? And then going back to, like, I'm sure a lot of the work that you do is, where are you in the equation of your life? Because do you give your energy to everyone around you, and then you're just an afterthought?
That is so common. A lot, especially for women, I would say.
I agree. Yeah.
Not that it doesn't exist for men, because I do have that. But we're just taught, a lot of our society is taught to give and give and give. And if we do something for ourselves, you're selfish.
Yeah.
How can you do that? You're not sacrificing all of you to give to your kid or to give to your husband or to give to how dare you? You know, that's usually implied, which is unfortunate, right? Because we do need to take care of ourselves.
I think it's shifting too, though,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate. You know, I think that the light, like, you know, the jig is up. It's, you know, we're not doing that anymore. And I think that that's what opens the landscape in healthcare to what we do, which is being able to offer those tools to people. And also being able to demystify something very ancient and esoteric like Chinese medicine to the average person and say, you know, you're just a reflection of nature. That's all this is saying. You know, it doesn't really have, it's not like you need like some kind of codex to be able to translate this. It's like, it's very straightforward. Even though some of what I do is very esoteric in nature. And if you communicate a pattern in Chinese medicine to someone, they'll be afraid. Like, oh, you have liver qi stagnation. She's like, wait, what's wrong with my liver? There's something wrong with my liver? Wait a minute. It's like, no. That just means that things aren't moving very quickly because your liver filters your blood and there's sluggishness in there.
Clean
and we
it
need
up
to
a little
clear it
bit.
up. And then you go to like, it's inflamed, all those things, and going back to that.
Can we go back to that and just kind of go in, okay, if you have too much wood, right, or you have too much water, or too much earth, how does that manifest in your body, and what organs are associated with what element?
Oh, for sure. So there's a beautiful chart that sums it up. And, you know, I have one in my office. So the liver and the gallbladder are part of the wood element.
Okay.
The highest nature of the wood element is benevolence. The season is spring, and it's alive. So it wants to move forward and do things, right? So it's a time of like a lot of activity, plans, projects, let's do. The fire element is summertime. It governs 4 organs: the heart, the pericardium, which is the membrane around the heart, the small intestine, and then this organ that's not really an organ. It's a concept called the triple warmer, which I think is more lymphatic in nature. Okay. And that's governed by the fire element. The highest virtue is propriety, which means not being prim and proper. It means knowing what to say and when. Like the art of the slow clap, right? Like if you know the timing of a joke or something, people will engage. If you don't have good timing, everyone's like, what was that? Mm-hmm. So the fire element people are really good at that. Like they know what to say and how to say it. The earth element is next. That's late summer. It's the digestive system, spleen, stomach. The metal element is next in autumn. It's the heart and the large intestine. And the water element is wintertime, and it's the bladder and the kidney. Okay. Water controls fire. Fire controls metal. Metal controls wood. Wood controls earth. And then, you know, water generates wood, which generates fire, which generates earth, which generates metal, which goes back to water. So that gives you this concept that if one system is out of whack, it's going to affect all the other ones. But if we solve the challenge of that one system. So, for example, if you have a digestive disorder, the spleen stomach might be deficient or not being able to process food. You're getting bloated, gassy. You have anemia because the spleen is responsible for blood production, which means you're not getting nutrients. You don't have the energy to actually digest it in order to be able to absorb those nutrients and address the problems of that particular element. It's either going to be the wood element that controls the earth, so something in your blood, toxicity, inflammation, or anger, stress, frustration, that could put so much pressure on your system that your digestive shut down. How many patients do you have that when they get stressed, they can't eat?
Oh, yeah. Fight or flight.
Wood controls earth.
And I think that is really, the beauty of why we created this podcast is to bring light to other alternative therapies. And like you said, every body is different. Every person's, what they are driven to as far as like seeking certain providers or healing modalities is different. And we want to shine the light on different services. And we thank you for sharing a little bit about what you do. And it's just been amazing to learn.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Hold on, one more. I know the viewers are probably like in their house or wherever they're listening to this in their car, and they're like, well, I wonder what I am, what element I am. So obviously it's not, complete, like affirmative, this is who you are by what maybe you can give, but just an idea, kind of like, okay, if you're more like this, you're probably more dominant in this, and just to, for fun.
Well, I have a quiz on my website that you can take. So it's like kind of like a little personality quiz, and it's always fun to do. So I can definitely share that. And then second, to sum it up succinctly, what element, if you're like Belle, right? Like leadership, visionary, moving forward, really wanting to go toward things, very frustrated if things aren't moving, kind of have a hard time staying still, right? Like need to work out every day or like have some activity. Also, you could be a little impatient and also frustrated, and it takes an incredible amount of energy to like find that patience.
Yes.
That's
I'm not
wood.
patient.
That's wood. And what I tell wood type people is try to be like a palm tree.
Like
The palm tree can bend in the hurricane and it'll bounce right back. So it's like flexibility is really important. So that's the reason that wood type people need to stay mobile and flexible. So workout is a really good thing. Stretching, the wood dominates the sinews and the tendons. So you want to be able to use that. So that's wood type people. Driver personalities, a little impatient. Fire is the life of the party. Like that person walks in and all of a sudden, yep. La rumba, like it started now because so-and-so just walked in. They have great music. They're super fun, and also have what seems to be an extroverted personality. Not always an extrovert, but have easy access to that. Also, people who just always know what to say. Like, that when you leave a conversation, like, oh, I should have said it that way. Yeah, that like almost never happens to them.
Yeah.
It dominates the heart, so they know how to really connect with people. And you could have just a healthy fire too, like not necessarily be a fire type. You could have someone with a healthy fire that just really always connects with people, and that part of their personality is really aligned and in balance. The highest virtue of that element, I said, was propriety. So, knowing how to read the room is the fire type. And so if that's who you are, tend to be people in media, journalists, or talk shows and things like that, Oprah, you see a lot of that fire. Earth elements. Earth is the kind of person that you get to the party and they brought the most awesome dessert. They make sure everybody is comfortable. They're the hostess with the mostest or the host with the most. Always making sure that your drink is filled, that you've got enough food. They make people comfortable. You look at them and even their eyes make you feel like you're home. Like they have that glimmer in the eye and they just so kind and nurturing. The highest virtue of earth is creativity and nurturing. So if you ever need some work on your own earth element, turn that back toward yourself. So an earth type people tend to forget themselves. So it's very much like the mother energy or the parent energy or the nurturing caretaker energy is a lot of earth. And people going through that in their life will start to have earth issues or get activated. Metal. Metal is beautiful. Metal, like the way I describe metal is, if you know, like the cherry blossoms in Japanese, like paint. Imagine like a cherry blossom that just fell off the tree and in the snow is just spiraling down to the ground. And you know that it's on its way to die. But that swan song, that beautiful dance until it gently falls in the snow, that's metal.
I'm already in love.
Beautiful. It artists that feel like the longing for something, that feeling of beauty because it's like perfection. People who are very perfectionist, people who wear a lot of white, like, you know, kind of ethereal, angelic looking people are metal. They tend to have a little bit of a softer voice because it dominates the lungs, which is how we breathe in. And so they have like sometimes a very, you know,
Soft
spoken. And, you know, maybe they look like an angel, like that's very metal. The flip side of metal is also the large intestine, which is getting rid of what you don't need, right? And it can be a little gritty. So metal element people can be very ethereal, but they're tied to truth. They're truth seekers. So you'll either see it as a truth seeker that's going to, like, the truth above all, even if it hurts people's feelings, like no fire, right? Just the truth is the truth is the truth. And they have the courage to be able to tell the truth, seek the truth, or make the decision that nobody wants to make. Like, we only have 10 parachutes, someone's got to stay on the plane. Like that kind of decision, that you need metal for that, because they are truth seekers and they're realists. And they have this beautiful artistic like quality to them because they can see like the beauty in that truth. The highest virtue of the metal element is communion with the divine. The imbalanced emotion is grief. And part of it is because of the grief that you have when you want something you can't have. So it's that concept of longing. So that's metal. And then water. Water is amazing. Water is difficult to be able to actually diagnose because it can look like a lot of things, just like water. It can be still like a pond in the morning, like glass, like the ocean when you want to go like paddleboarding, right?
Yeah.
It can be ice. It can be like vapor, right? It can be so many things, steam. It can be a tsunami. So it can be all of these things. The kidney is the kidney and the bladder is where the water element is. And that's so interesting because if you know, like when people are afraid and they pee their pants, fear. And so the highest virtue of the water element is wisdom through the through being able to walk through fear. So becoming wise because you've combated and you've superseded your fear of death. And it's winter where things are dead. So a water type people tend to be very much intellectuals, wise, looking like the path of the sage. They tend to be very spiritual. They can be very, they wear a lot of black. Actually, that's the color of water. And then also looking at, like, think of like a Tai Chi master, you know, like they can speak in riddles. They can be very, very calm 1 minute and suck like just the tsunami just took out the village. You know what I mean? And you didn't even see it coming. So the personality can be very different and volatile. The highest virtue is the path, is the sage, and the concepts and the way you get there is resources. So being able to understand how to make resources and how to spend them, save them, so you could be reckless and use all your resources and be an adrenaline junkie that just wants to feel like adrenaline all the time. That's water too, because it's the kidneys, right? Like the adrenals are right there. Or it could be someone who's so scared of doing anything that they're paralyzed. So the water is complicated. Like it's so nuanced. And a lot of people have water imbalances in this universe or in this day and age in the society because of the fear, right? We're so fear driven. So you'll see a lot of lower back problems.
I have lower back problems.
Yeah. Well, sometimes lower back problems, if it's an emotional root, is fear of not being supported. Like, and sometimes it's money, or sometimes it's like physical support, like an actual physical support. And sometimes it actually is like your belly gets big, like in pregnancy sometimes, and it pushes your center of gravity forward and it causes like the herniation of the lumbar, and there's no physical support for the spine. So there's ways to address that. Yeah. But that's usually water element stuff. Yeah. That was a long answer. It was a long.
No,
it's a
no,
lot,
very
yeah.
informative. I mean, I could stay here for forever. But where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can definitely find me in Coconut Grove on US 1 if you want to see me in person in the North Grove.
The name of your...
Yeah, and my website is treehouseacupuncture.com, and then in Instagram it's Treehouse Acupuncture Miami. And definitely reach out, because we're always looking for new patients and people that are curious about Chinese medicine, and that if this speaks to you, then we'd love to be able to support you how we can. Yeah.